Good afternoon. Welcome to another version of the City Club of Idaho Falls. My name is Greg Crockett. I have the pleasure of currently serving as the president of the board. And on behalf of the board of directors, we welcome you all and thank you for joining us here for our virtual program today. Today we are hosting a mayoral candidate forum for those candidates pursuing the mayoral position in the city of Idaho Falls. We will welcome the incumbent Rebecca Casper and her challenger Ashley Romero. They will be introduced forthwith. We come to you today via the production studios of IE Productions on McNeil Avenue in Idaho Falls. IE Productions has gone a long ways to help the City Club of Idaho Falls continue our programming through the pandemic. We couldn't have continued our programs without IE Productions, and we thank them and their principals, Gary Stewart, Chad Hammond, Cole Hammond, and they are here today as serving in production of this presentation. Of course, we would also need to thank our sponsors of the City Club. They include the INL, Raymond James, Bank of Idaho, ISU, KISU, who will rebroadcast this program at a later date on KISU. Let me talk a minute about what City Club intends to do with respect to future programming. We are working hard to put together a lineup of programs that we think will be in the public interest and the public and interest to all of our audience. We intend to continue to provide a program every month. Programming may include the new leadership of INL, some, hot issues in the city of Idaho Falls, including land use development and housing, update of the city plan, and its discussions of that. We want to bring some programs with respect to workforce development and job training, and look forward to the announcement of those programs as we get those scheduled. But it is our intention to continue our monthly programming, and we hope you'll bear with us as we work our way through the restrictions of COVID-19. Of course, we will return to live broadcasting and live programs when it's safe to do so. And we will rely on our public health officials to advise us when again we can start to gather. We do intend to resume our live programming at the Benyon Student Union building at ISU, University Place in Idaho Falls. To facilitate and moderate our candidate forum today, it's my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, Carol Honus. Carol serves with me on the City Club Board of Directors, and she's a valuable participant in that area. But she's prominently known as a long-standing news anchor person at KISU Channel 8 here in Idaho Falls. She has been the go-to person for the City Club in terms of our candidate forums, and it's my pleasure again today to introduce you to Carol Honus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yes, many years, 30 years with KIFI, and I've been retired for about a year now, and I did find I was a little rusty in our last debate last week with the city council candidates for Idaho Falls. You tend to fall out of the loop just a little bit, but I feel sharper now, loving where Idaho Falls is going right now. This city is exciting. It is progressive, and it is setting the way for the entire valley to watch, to learn, to grow, and to become an even better place to live. So we have two mayoral candidates, just as Greg said. We have the incumbent, Mayor Casper, and we have the challenger, Ashley Romero. Each one of them are going to give like a 1 minute, 1.5 minute background so we can get to know them a little bit. But that's what this hour is about, is what do each one of these women have to contribute, and what would they be able to do to help lead Idaho Falls into the future, which is a pretty bright future by most standards. So Rebecca, I'm going to start with you as the incumbent. for those that might not know you or are just learning about you, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Well, thank you, Carol. And before I answer your question directly, I just want to express my gratitude as well to both the City Club Board of Directors and IE Productions for making this possible. I have been serving as mayor of the city of Idaho Falls since January 2014. I have 4 children. I own a home on the west side of town. My kids all went to District 91 schools and graduated. They're all old, and they're all adults, I'll say that. COVID has brought some of them in and out of my home, but I found that this was a wonderful place to raise my family. And I'll tell you that I'm probably not the only one who thinks that. I think many of the people moving here now are moving here partly because this is a great place to raise your kids. And I'm not the only one who thinks Idaho Falls is a great place. Earlier this year, the Milken Institute named Idaho Falls the best performing small city in America. And when you think about that, there's a lot that goes into that. Not just a great place to raise your kids, but there's that economic success. In fact, this was mostly an economic development kind of a rating. And we've got, growth at the INL. Their missions are expanding with Snake River Landing, owned by Ball Ventures. We've got Jackson Hole Junction, Costco, a third hospital that's been added in the last few years. We have a lot of successful things going on, and that's makes it, again, a nice place to live. But I'm not really trying to take credit for these successes, but I will tell you that I'm proud that they happened on my watch. And I will also say that I've worked really hard as mayor to be available to every single city director, every entrepreneur, developer, or citizen that came in the door and had an idea they wanted to share or a project they wanted that was good for this community. I worked hard to make sure that they found a partner in the mayor's office.
Thank you, Rebecca. And now we get to meet Ashley Romero. Ashley, tell us a little bit about your background and why you would like to be mayor.
Well, I grew up here in Idaho Falls. I graduated from Skyline High School in 2005. And Idaho Falls is just dear to my heart. I've been other places, but I came back because this is home. This is where I wanted to raise my kids. My husband and I have 4 kids. Our oldest is Gabby, she's 8. Angela's 5, Haley is 3, and Wesley is 2. So, although I may be a mom of young kids, we're out in the community a lot. So we get to see what is going on. We get to see challenges and difficulties. Even though this is a great place to live, there are challenges that need to be met. And I decided to run because I felt that communication was lacking. And I felt that it was important for every person to have their voice heard. And in order for that to happen, we need to be able to reach out. And I enjoy being able to listen to people and talk to them and find out what's important to them. And with all of the current mandates that are lessened now, but last year were very heavy, there are a lot of people in the city that were unhappy with them. And honestly, I was too. So I decided to throw my name in the ring, so to speak. And I'm not going to back down from hard questions.
Yeah, Ashley, if I could do a follow-up on that. I am a mother of 3 boys, and I had a very, very demanding career with very odd hours. And it was very often a struggle to meet both of my demands at the station and my demands as a mom. Your kids are really little. So
They are.
The mayor's office will take a lot of time. How are you prepared to balance?
My husband and I have been discussing this, and he's actually going to leave his job. Should I become mayor, he's going to leave his current job that he took so he could go to school, so he could have more flexibility of time. And it would work out for us either way, because my husband is very supportive of this. He decided that we needed someone in there that would listen and work with the people, get their hands in the projects and get it done. And so knowing that my husband is willing to step up and take the place that I've been doing for the last 8 years is very important to me. We homeschool currently. We've homeschooled the whole time. So being able to have my husband still support that even, it's not going to be that much of a change for us. It's just a switch in parent.
Thank you. Rebecca, you probably have some tips because you were right in the throng of it. 4 kids and mayoral responsibilities. So any suggestions you'd have, let me tell you, there was a time when this question never came up in a mayoral debate because it was all men. So to have 2 women, parents, moms, running for an office that demands so much time is, it's new, and that's fabulous. But what tips might you have? How did you do it? How are you doing it? You still have some at home.
Routines really matter. Having for me, a good relationship with the schools so that we could communicate easily. And of course, that doesn't quite become a need when you're homeschooling. But a lot of pre-planning and organization. You spend your maybe the closing hours of a Sunday night getting everything mapped out for the coming week. I did have the first time I ran, I had support from my kids, and I had a daughter who was old enough to cook. And she wasn't just old enough to cook, she was old enough to do some research. And she put weeks worth of meals into the freezer so that we could have those home-cooked meals and be able to still function on busy days. And so that was so very touching for me to have that kind of support from my daughter. But things like that are the things that make the difference.
Yeah, you do get creative, don't you? Yeah. On squeezing everything into the right hour. Okay, well, let's get into that. Is, I think, a heavy-duty thing for voters to think about is all the responsibilities you have, and how, again, how wonderful it is that women are getting so involved that it's not surprising anymore to have 2 candidates that are both female. I wasn't sure when I started 30 some odd years ago that would ever happen. I'm happy to see it happen. So when we asked the members of the board, the City Club board, to give us some questions, the main question that I got over and over and over again had to do with affordable housing and what we could do with the homeless. But affordable housing was a really big one because there's just no inventory right now. And in theory, Rebecca, we have a bunch of INL possible contractors moving in to build on new projects. So as mayor, what do you do to make sure there's going to be a place for them to live when they move here?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question because I think you're right. Not only is it on the minds of the board members that submitted questions to you, but it's on everybody's mind. Mm-hmm. And there's no question that Idaho Falls needs more housing. And we've known that for a while. We've sort of seen this coming. And not only do we just say more housing, but we need more housing of all types. Everything from apartments that you can rent in a studio in someone's basement, all the way to those big luxury homes, on an acre or more. Variety is what we need because it will satisfy demand all across the spectrum, and so we don't want to end up with too much of one kind or another. But the trick is, or the tricky part is that the city doesn't build housing, right? We're not in that business. However, we influence the planning, the zoning process. During construction, we do the inspections. So we have a very large role to play in terms of development of new housing stock. It was about 3 years ago that we pulled together a committee consisting of planners, realtors, a broker, council member, an economic development director. We pulled all those folks together, and they kind of went into a real deep dive on taking a systematic look at the ordinances and the processes that are in place that control development and that the construction industry, the hoops they have to go through. And I think it worked because we have lots of housing right now in the pipeline. When I say that, they're either being planned, platted, or ready to break ground when spring hits because we're going into winter now and that's not a prime construction season. But when spring comes, we have right now over 1,500 housing units of some type or another in the pipeline. And by the time, that's today, by the time we get to spring, we'll probably have many, many more. So I think next year is going to be a heavy construction year. If you've got somebody who was looking for a job next spring, point them in the direction of construction.
That's going to be the way to go. Ashley, does any of this sound kind of familiar to you? Have you studied it all? Do you have ideas of what to do to house these people that are, in theory, coming to Idaho Falls in the near future?
Well, first of all, I participated in one of the online meetings that they had. I think it was this past spring or early summer, where the city council was asking about people's opinions on the different types of housing that we thought would be good for our city. And honestly, it depends on the neighborhood on what you can accomplish with the building. Because if you start to tear down the older homes in, for example, my neighborhood, I live on the numbered streets. A lot of those houses have been there since the 1920s. It's a part of history for this city. But there will need to be more housing, but it needs to be affordable. There's so many people right now that are losing jobs, or they could potentially lose their jobs in the next few months. And it's heart-wrenching to see what people go through when they don't have housing. And I've had the opportunity to talk to several of the homeless because I want to make a change. I want to see good happen in this city.
And Ashley, I totally appreciate that, but you're kind of answering by repeating the question. And the question is, we have a problem, and you're totally agreeing with that. But what ideas do you have to change it, to make it better, other than, I'm compassionate and we have to do something? Do you have any solid concrete the day you get into office? You can start implementing ideas to get the housing built.
Well, like the mayor said, there are projects in the works. We need to keep tabs on how much things cost and what it's going to cost for people to get into those homes. We need to look into the cost, because not everybody can afford to pay $1,000 a month in rent for some apartments. Not everyone can afford to pay large quantities. We need to look into housing that can be attainable for this neighborhood. Otherwise, the homelessness issue is going to get worse. So I would like to look into housing that is more sustainable, in a sense. I would like to look into what does it cost for the materials, because right now the materials cost is very high to build a house. I want to look into what does each type of housing cost, and what is it going to cost the citizens? What is it going to cost for us to get those built in the city? How much is it going to impact the property taxes? It's important to look at all the different angles, because just because someone says this is the way to go, maybe they are missing the viewpoint of others.
Thank you. Rebecca, follow up on that at all?
Well, Carol, if it's okay with you, maybe we should could segue right now to homelessness, because that's actually it's related, of course, to housing, but it's a big topic all on its own. Would that be all right if I kind of touched on that?
It's the next question on the list.
All right. Well, I'm actually grateful for the attention to the topic of homelessness, or attention on this topic, because it's something that I studied in graduate school. Spent a lot of time working in a food and housing shelter group. Food and Shelter Coalition is what it was. And I will tell you that when you're looking at the large issue of homelessness, it comes from two different kinds of problems. The one problem is people who are struggling with substance abuse and mental health issues, and who are homeless as a byproduct of those other bigger problems. And then you've got folks who are homeless because of an affordability issue, right? They can't find that affordable housing. Now, we've already talked a little bit about housing and the need for more, and I mentioned the importance of having a variety of housing options. And part of the reason that you want the variety is because you don't want people who need mid-level housing being so desperate for a place to live that they take up all of the housing that's more affordable and meant for a different strata of the population. So if we build out a variety, then we will be sure to have some housing in that either category called affordable, or in some cases, there may be some projects that are ripe for subsidization. I will tell you, as a side note, I have not seen any programs in the ARPA Act that Congress passed at the end of last year, or at the beginning of this year, or whenever they passed it, but I haven't seen any programs that direct money toward housing subsidies just yet. And I haven't studied every single part of that bill because it's pretty extensive, but that seems to me to be an area where we could use a little help.
And the acronym, for anybody that doesn't know?
ARPA, oh crud, American, I'll think of it in recovery. I'll work on it in a second.
Okay. We do a lot of acronyms in Eastern Idaho, and so I just always try to clear those up for anybody that might not know. Exactly what you're referring to there. So, anyway, some kind of recovery. It's a federal program.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's where, after CARES, it was the next bill.
Okay.
And so I don't remember the American Recovery and Protection Act, I
Okay.
think, but I'm not sure of that second piece.
Okay. Ashley, one of the council candidates that we had on last week really just wants to turn this over to the free market. As far as building goes, doesn't think that the city needs to get involved with creating these new apartments. If there's a need, then free market should handle it. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, here's a thought on it, and I am okay being wrong if I am wrong, but there needs to be a balance between the free market and how involved the city is. If we can find that balance, then we're going to be able to do a whole lot more for the people in Idaho Falls. I say that free market is important because if there's too much privatization, then there's too much control over how much something is going to cost. The free market allows different companies to go, okay, we can build this for this cost. This is what we can do. But if it's all straight from the government, then there's no balance. And honestly, there needs to be a balance in the city.
And are you under the impression right now that there isn't?
I think there could be better balance.
Can you tell me how? Like an example?
I'm trying to think of the correct words for this. But just for an example, we could do better with our local government meeting with the different contractors to get their ideas on how things can be done at a more reasonable price. And that would help find the balance.
You good?
Yeah.
It's just so everybody knows, because of COVID, we're sitting far apart and all facing the same direction. And so I honestly can't always tell when you guys are finished, and I don't want to jump onto your thought if you're just paused to think. So if you wonder why I sit here for just a second, it's like, okay, I can't see your face, but I'm assuming you're finished. So thank you very much, Ashley. Rebecca, okay, so we all agree housing is an issue. Ashley's idea is to meet more, with contractors, and it sounds like you have been doing that. Do you expect a lot more of that type work in the city?
Well, I mentioned a committee that we'd formed, but we actually, my office plus the leaders in community development services, our planning director and our building inspector, chief inspector on that side of that department, we meet quarterly with the Eastern Idaho Home Builders Association, and that essentially is a group of developers and contractors that come together, and we do talk about the challenges that they face. And lately it has been, the price of steel, the price of lumber, price of copper a while back. That came up first a few years ago. But we also talk about government regulation. We talk about mutual interests in legislation that needs to be passed at the state level. And we just kind of share notes and make sure that we're all on the same page. Because, again, where people live matters. And so we've had this collaboration going on for several years. So it's not something new or something I'm just throwing out for this election. It's been going on for many years, and those meetings include the city of Ammon and the county as well. And so quarterly, we each take a turn buying sandwiches for the others, and we have a lunch meeting.
But I don't understand what the city can do about creating affordable housing and a bunch of it right away. I mean, what power does the city have that would encourage the free market? Would you give passes on sewer for the first year? Something along those lines? What can you do?
Well, the interface comes with inspections, with fees, and with those approvals that are needed. Whenever someone wants to build something, they will submit, the information for their plat. It'll include what they anticipate to be, the needs of the property, and so the city officials will go through, and it goes through many departments. Fire department has to go through and make sure that the design that's being contemplated meet code for fire protection and suppression. We have the water people verify how many lines of what type and what inch water lines are needed. We've got the sewer and sanitation folks that are weighing in. We've got to make sure the roads are the appropriate width. All of those things happen, and so they often say in the private sector that time is money. And when a developer comes in, their time is valuable. And the sooner they can get something built, the sooner they can get it sold or rented out or whatever and get that money flowing. And so they want our processes to be as streamlined as possible. They recognize that those inspections are important, that those, checking every box, that's important. And so when we meet together, we're not talking about how expensive it is for them to buy lumber or how hard it is or easy it is for them to sell properties. We're mostly talking about how we can make sure that we're each holding up our end of that relationship in a way that's efficient. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but there isn't a lot that we do to stimulate the market, but there's an awful lot that we can do to help save time and money for those who are putting their money on the line for these new developments.
Thank you. Ashley, I'm going to change topics now here a little bit. Urban renewal was another question that came in repeatedly from the board. First of all, what do you think about the Idaho Falls redevelopment agency? Should it continue?
That is one area that I actually hadn't contemplated, but I'm definitely going to research more on it. Now, I'm going to ask you to kind of rephrase your question.
Sure.
That way I can.
Let's start it this way. Okay, first of all, urban renewal. Do you support it in general or not?
As in?
Let's say that maybe an urban renewal project would affect a homeowner or a property owner because the city might decide this is a project very important to all of the citizens. I'm pretty sure this is eminent domain type question. And so we will come in and give you fair market value for your property, but we are definitely needing to put in whatever right here, has to go here, whether it be a new road going through as we grow in Idaho Falls. So there is a definite population out there that says my property, my rights, and no, I'm not selling. And then there's the other side that says sometimes you just have to do this for the betterment of the entire city, for all the citizens. You have an opinion on that?
I apologize if I get a little overpassionate at the moment, but here's my thoughts on this. If somebody has worked every day hard to pay for that property, to live there, they're not going to want to give it up very fast. It's going to be kind of a slam because fair market price may not actually be fair to them with how much they've put into that house. For example, my husband and I live in a 1920s house on the numbered streets, and we've seen a lot of changes where some of the houses have been torn down and duplexes have been put in. And some of our neighbors feel like they're next. They feel like they don't have the opportunity to keep what they've worked hard for. And I get that sometimes things may seem like it has to happen in a specific way, but if it's just a matter of expanding a road, where does that leave the person that had to give up their home, or the several people on that street that had to give up their homes? Where does it leave them? It leaves them with almost nothing. Because even if it's fair market, that doesn't give you enough to buy a new house. It doesn't give you enough to build back up your equity.
Rebecca?
Do you want me to comment on eminent domain or on urban renewal?
Let's do eminent domain since we're on that topic right now.
All right. So it's important that we're clear on the definition, and I think you've given us a good definition of that, Carol, which is the right of government to seize, private property for public use. And again, that fair market value issue has to be, a factor prominently. The courts require that. But my opinion is that it needs to be very restricted. That is a tool of last resort. It needs to be used really, really carefully. In the 8 years that I've been in city government, I believe we've only used eminent domain once, and it was to take a few feet of right-of-way property to expand a right turn that needed to be made just a little more safe. And the property owner, was holding out, I think, for more money. And oftentimes that will happen when someone knows that the government's going to pay for it and that they could seize it. They'll bargain as hard as they can to get, that fair, to inch up that fair market value price. And so that it can be almost a game or a dance, and we played it, and we ended up, I'm not sure if we ended up threatening it and not using it for those few feet of property, or because they took the offer, or not. But anyway, or maybe we had to use it and take that property. But it was something that the owner was an attorney, and so they kind of knew what they were in for. But for the most part, eminent domain, I think, has given urban renewal a bad name over the years. I don't know if any of those egregious cases of somebody saying we need this property for public use and we're going to take it for the urban renewal district. I don't think any of those things have happened in Idaho. I think they've been back east, but it is something I think that has to be weighed out and taken very, very carefully. And I almost would go out on a limb and say that eminent domain maybe should only be considered when there's a public safety factor involved in the mix. It's not just about making something pretty.
And so urban renewal in general, though, you would support. You have seen good things happen.
Urban renewal is one of the only tools that cities in Idaho have to be able to incentivize growth or redevelopment. And urban renewal is essentially a redevelopment tool. It's meant to help be a tool to help improve blighted areas or areas that need that need some kind of special attention. When you have just green fields on the edge of town, you don't use urban renewal to develop those because the free market will take care of making those attractive. But oftentimes what it involves is once you have an area in mind and you have a plan in mind, and you're sure that this plan is going to take off, then you write up the plan and you submit it. But the plan has to meet certain criteria in the law. And if the urban renewal district is approved, then by the Urban Renewal Agency, which in our case, as you mentioned, is the Idaho Falls Redevelopment Agency. Those board members are appointed by the mayor, and the consent to those appointments is given by the city council. And so they are agents of the city, and the expectation is that they're going to work in the best interest of the city, which is to bring that blighted property into a higher and better use of that land so that property values are enhanced, because every time you enhance a property value, everybody's tax rate goes down. So they work for the city to try to create extra value on land. So what happens is once you designate an area, their taxes are frozen, not frozen, sorry, let me back up. You create this area, and any property taxes that are being paid on the properties in that district or area are then set aside for the agency's use, and then the agency uses those taxes as the capital that's needed to be able to pay for some of the infrastructure needs that will enhance the redevelopment process. So
definitely supporting.
Yes,
Definitely
absolutely
supporting.
Love it.
Okay. Ashley, we got several people from the audience last week with the council candidates on an issue I'm not as familiar with as people in Idaho Falls are. I live in Blackfoot, so whatever you folks decide to do, I don't vote on it anyway. But what is the deal with the water tower and the location? Are you familiar with that, and do you have an opinion?
Oh, I'm familiar. I feel as though things were kind of rushed, and the manners that they went about to give people a chance on a say on where it was going to be was very limited. And a lot of people didn't know what was happening until after it had already been decided. And so they felt left out of the decision. They felt as though their opinions didn't matter. And that kind of hurts the relationship between the city and its citizens. Now, I do have to say, I appreciate that the water tower was sort of included in the new splash pad. That was a great way to show the citizens that it hasn't been forgotten. That water tower is still a part of our community. Now, I do have to say, I don't think those 3 spots were optimal by any stretch of the imagination for the actual citizens. And there's no way to really win with the water tower issue, because our city does need a better water tower. But going about it to where the citizens don't feel as though they have a say is kind of harsh in a sense. Like, that's the best word I can come up with in nice terms. Of course, the citizens at this point don't have a say. And it causes tension and resentment, in a sense.
I would say the most that I've learned about it is just from letters to the editor, but I did find it just kind of interesting. Rebecca, if I'm correct, it goes in the South Park? Is that?
It's called South Capitol Park.
Yeah.
And so what would you say to Ashley's suggestion that the citizens didn't get a way in?
There were, and I didn't bring notes with me to be able to tell you dates or times, but I think we had at least 3 separate public meetings during the course of the year in 2019, and to which the public was invited. I think that maybe part of the concern, or not concern, but problem, is that there are so many ways that people get their information right now. Some get radio, some get TV, some just use the internet, some just use apps on their phone or Facebook or something. And so as we put things out, it's really easy to miss a single post, or to not read an article in the paper, or to not maybe get that announcement for a meeting. And we are needing to upgrade, I think, altogether, our what we call public engagement, right? We need a new public engagement plan of action because there are so many different ways you have to reach out to people. Gone are the days when you can just put an ad in the paper and everybody knows about something. So, but the water tower has been a very difficult issue, but as Ashley said, the city has to have a new water tower. The old one is failing, and we can't not have a tower. The sites are dictated primarily by geographical and engineering kinds of issues. The size of the water pipes, the location of the well, the ability to gravity feed, all those things matter. And that meant that there weren't very many potential sites, and as those got narrowed down for practical reasons, the 3 that we were left with, they're not ideal from an aesthetic point of view or from a use of parks and recreation, land point of view, but they did fit the profile for that public works engineering point of view, which in this case dictated where those sites were. And so we're at a point now where we have to maximize the benefits of the location that we're at. And South Capitol Park, it's important for people to know that it's not being closed or utterly destroyed. You will see during construction that a large space is being dug up, and that is because you have to pour the foundation for this huge tower. But once that foundation is poured, then that will be able to be buried. You'll see soil, and then you'll see grass, and the actual footprint of the tower itself is not going to be nearly as big as people think, and so there'll still be the grass, the trees in the background, although a couple trees will have to be sacrificed for the pouring of the base. So I can say much more, but I know we're on a time schedule.
Yep. Well, like I say, if you're from Blackfoot and you're reading letters to the editor and there's a bunch of letters about the water tower, I'm like, do we have any bigger issues than that? So Ash, let me ask you this. What do you think the number 1 challenge is facing Idaho Falls, and how are you going to handle it should you be elected mayor?
Well, there's several issues, but the first and foremost is the growth issue. We do have a growth issue. And the only way to overcome that growth issue is to really communicate as citizens and as city workers. It needs to be, first and foremost, how can we meet the needs of the citizens? And the only way to know what they need is to actually listen to them, to talk to them. Get out in the public more.
Are you thinking about maybe doing something like some of the law enforcement agencies do, where they have coffee with a cop?
Why
know-
not? Why not? That sounds like a great idea. I don't drink coffee, but
It
hot cocoa.
Yeah, you can have cocoa with the cop too. But in your opinion, more time maybe in the coffee shops, the restaurants, the where you could meet the people,
Yeah.
or are you thinking? Well, you tell me what you're thinking. If you became mayor, how are you going to increase this communication time with the public?
Okay, so first of all, in my opinion, being mayor isn't about being the leader in the city. It's about being the head servant of the city. And in order to know the problems of the city, you need to be out and about serving the city. I know that there's other meetings that have to be attended to, but that's not going to take up all of the time. So yeah, a cocoa time with the mayor, sure. Or just getting out and talking to the small business owners, talking to those in the neighborhoods. My 8-year-old has a wonderful idea. It's amazing what can be come up with, even by an 8-year-old. She wants a mayor's kids club. Kids are out and about more than the adults half the time. And they notice what happens. Her suggestion to me was have a time where kids and their parents can come and talk to the mayor and present issues or present ideas for service projects. The mayor needs to be involved in the different service projects around town.
Is there one particular, problem other than growth that you would need to attack should you be elected right off the get-go?
Honestly, the budget. Budget's huge. I've been looking through the different the budget planning for the past couple of years. I've been looking into them, and I feel as though some departments have been kind of left in the dust in a way. I see the need for certain things, but I want to look at the budget and have a meeting with each individual department and say, what do you need most for your department to do your job safely and keep the citizens of this city safe? And then make a list and prioritize. What is more important than keeping the citizens safe and keeping the employees safe? If we're not meeting the needs before the wants, how are we going to say we're listening to the people?
Rebecca, what do you see as the number one challenge facing you should you be reelected?
Sorry, I had to turn my mic on. I do think that we have sort of hit the nail on the head when we talk about issues surrounding growth. And that's housing, that's how we deal with having more people in town, more cars in town, traffic, concerns, and how we address those. We also have taken steps just recently to really get some concrete things rolling with public transit. That's something that's been absent from the landscape here in Idaho Falls since early 2019, and so I think those things matter in terms of creating a thriving community. To the idea that budgeting is a concern, I think we all go about approaching the city budget in much the same way that we might approach our household budget. We think of what's coming in, what needs to go out, and how we prioritize and how we identify what we wish we could have versus what we have to pay for. And to a certain extent, that kind of common sense prevails throughout the city. Those meetings with directors, those meetings with council members, those meetings with the public where they're invited to come and express their priorities, all of those things do happen. And so I'm not as concerned about the budget process itself as I am about our ability to foresee what's coming. We need to sometimes lift our chin and our sight from what's in front of us to what's coming down the pike or what's on the horizon. And I think being able to forecast and plan and get ahead of the curve is an area where I think I would like to see the city develop with just a little more muscle.
Ashley, is this your first run for any kind of a public office?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So in light of the problems that have noted, do you feel like you have the experience? Why are you qualified to step in as a mayor?
I get asked that a lot. I get asked, what is your experience? Why should you be mayor? And my answer to that is, why not? If I see a need for change, why not stand up and make the change? I may not be a political science minded person for the most part, but I am service oriented. If I see a need, I'm going to step up and I'm going to fill that need. I'm not going to back down with a tough issue. That doesn't matter if it's growth or the water tower or mandates. I am going to step up and be there for the people in this city. It doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you're going and how you're going to get there.
Any examples of exactly, what you're speaking of?
Okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
Well, in college, I was part of Phi Theta Kappa. It's an honor society for those that can maintain a certain grade point average. Every weekend, we had a service project that we attended to. Every weekend, I was there. Every weekend, I stepped up to meet the needs of the community that I was in.
Is that like painting a house or mowing somebody's lawn? What would be an example?
We worked in a soup kitchen more than once. We helped raise funds for a child with cancer. We did mow lawns. We also shoveled sidewalks. We put together different community events in Miami, Oklahoma. And it was important for us as students to see what went on in the city around us. And it was a small city. It was smaller than Idaho Falls. But we stepped up every weekend to help someone in need.
I'm going to put you on the defense just a little bit, and it's only because you're the new kid on the block. And so people are going to, want to know a little bit more about you. I'm not sure you can balance those service opportunities from college with the humongous challenges facing the city of Idaho Falls. So convince the voters that you could step in and you will be learning on the job, but that you could keep up with what we're facing here, which is huge growth and a beautiful, exciting city, but issues.
Okay, you want me to convince you?
Yes. Well, not me, but the viewers.
Well, here's the thing. I may not have the experience, but I am willing to learn, and I work harder than most people that don't have the on-the-job experience. But the only way to gain the experience on the job is to do the job. There's no other way to go about it. Before Mayor Casper was the mayor, she didn't have the experience being mayor either. And I'm not the only mother of young children to run for an office in this country. And I'm not the only person that wants to step up and make a difference in this city. I will do what it takes to learn the job, and I will not back down from the challenge. I will learn how to be a great mayor of this city by serving its people.
All right, thank you. Rebecca, I was on 17th Street the other day, and I remember when we created Sunnyside, that was to take off some of the pressure.
That's right.
I feel like 17th and Sunnyside have equal pressure now of bumper-to-bumper traffic. Do you see that we have some serious traffic issues in Idaho Falls, or would the traffic engineers say, we're fine, we're getting them right through every stoplight, we're okay?
Nope, traffic is an issue. As we have more people, we have more cars. As we develop more retail capacity here in the city, we have more people coming in to shop. I challenge anybody to go to the mall or Costco or Sam's Club parking lots on a Saturday and not find plates from out of state or at least out of the county. So we do have a lot going on that whether it's growth or retail growth that brings a lot of cars to town. But one of the positive aspects of growth is that the city has matured enough that this year we were able to hire the first ever city traffic engineer, and she is able to do things that we formerly only did when we could get a grant every couple of years or every 2 or 3 years. And so one of those things that she can do is manage and monitor the timing of the signals, traffic signalization on 17th. I know that there was some effort to be working on Holmes as well, and just tweaking and fine-tuning those kinds of things that help traffic to move more efficiently. In addition, I will say that just as the city a few years back widened the intersections and improved the intersections at 17th and Hitt and 17th and Sunnyside, this summer we will be working, or this coming summer of 22, we'll be working to do the very same thing with 17th and Woodruff. And so, yeah, there'll be those painful, weeks of construction. But once that's done, we'll have yet another intersection that's going to be functioning and moving traffic with dedicated turn lanes and such in a more efficient manner. But remember, too, that cars aren't the only way to get around. And so we're striving to become do what we can to make the city a little less car-centric, which is hard to do in the West. But we have, as I mentioned earlier, the GIFT program, Greater Idaho Falls Transit, that will certainly take cars off the road. And I'm hoping that after the first of the year, we'll start to see some of GIFT GIFT in action. We also have placed an emphasis in our zoning on creating walkable developments, and meaning people should be able to, the vision is that you can live, work, and play all in an area where you can get around either on a bike or on foot. We will continue to work on those bike trails and expand that network. Now, it doesn't work during snowstorms, but it certainly works during other parts of the year so that we can help people to be able to be mobile and enjoy the city without quite as much pressure on traffic.
All right, this will be your last question, and then you'll have your time for closing remarks. This has been the most incredible, couple of years because of COVID. Just like this format today, where we can't hardly see each other, to do whether it's a debate or just an opportunity to let the voters know who you are and what you stand for. Rebecca, let me start with you. I'll kind of put you on the defense here. Did the city do everything it could within its legal power to address COVID?
Well, let me first point out that the state of Idaho has public health districts, and Idaho Falls is within Bonneville County. Bonneville County is one of, now I can't remember, 7 or 8 counties that make up the Eastern Idaho Public Health District. And their board is made up of representatives from each county commission, or an appointee from each county, and a doctor. And they hire public health professionals, epidemiologists and such, nurses, people who are medically trained to be able to give them the very best possible advice. And they are tasked with developing the guidelines. Our county or our district came up with some excellent guidelines. They had, a green, a yellow, and a red zone in terms of identifying where we were with respect to infections and hospital capacity and all of those things. I went to or listened to every single meeting that they had during the real height of the pandemic last year, from about June until about a few months ago when they stopped meeting very regularly. But it was the public health district that recommended wearing masks. The city never had a mandate or a rule with respect to any of that. However, the public health district, being a governmental entity, their actions, their recommendations and requirements have the force of law. And so in the city, we did take the position that it's our responsibility to uphold the rule of law. And so we honored those recommendations. And so if they said that we were in a red zone and all needed to be wearing masks, we asked our employees to wear masks. We did not ever, like I said, enact any of those ourselves. Did we have the power to? Yes, we did. State law gives cities the power to enact quarantines and things like that, all in the name of public health. But not having medical training and not having any medical folks on staff, short of our EMTs, but that's not their role. We did not enact anything. Again, we deferred to the public health district, which we're all a part of. So,
Ashley, where are you on this? Where you're at home and you got little kids, and it got even to me more scary when the variant came through. So let's say you step in as mayor. What might you do on COVID? The same as Rebecca has described? Would you have different policies?
Well, a lot of people in the city feel as though the city did make the decisions last year. And I felt so too, to be honest. And it's hard to be able to take children anywhere where they have to wear a mask. I've got a 5-year-old with sensory issues, and getting her to wear a mask is like pulling teeth. And if we went into a store and I tried to get her to wear her mask, it was either somebody making a harsh comment to my 5-year-old, or my 5-year-old having a meltdown because she can't handle the mask, no matter how much we practice with it. Now, as for what I would do as mayor is, we need to let the people of the city decide. Yes, we can defer to the public health department if necessary, but a lot of people in the city are tired of being told what to do. They're tired of being told, well, you have to wear a mask, when they haven't come in contact with anybody that has had COVID. COVID has impacted a lot of people, but there are still some people that have not run into anybody with it. My family still has not had COVID. Knock on wood, right? But there are other ways to encourage people to have regular visits with their doctors to make sure they know what's going on.
But as a mayor, had you been the mayor, let's say, in the last couple of years, no rules whatsoever from the city offices? Your employees, all the people that are under you, you wouldn't have required masks?
I would encourage them to make the choice for themselves. I'm not going to talk down on someone that wants to wear a mask or get a vaccine, but I'm not going to talk down on those that either don't feel the need or feel as though it's more detrimental to them.
Okay. I think that, shows a little difference of opinion in how either one of you would approach it as mayor. And that's kind of what these sessions are for, is just to give people a choice and see where you might differ.
Carol?
So, yes.
Just a bit of a follow-on on that. What's kind of an interesting point is that when a city employee maybe makes a choice not to become vaccinated or not to wear a mask or take precautions to not become ill, and they do become ill, is it entirely fair to ask the taxpayers to pay for their time off and to subsidize those choices when they're working on the public dime? And that question has come up, and it's one that we haven't had to answer yet, but right now it's certainly something that we have to think about in terms of our federal dollars as well, and the federal workforce that we have here in town. And so these issues are not entirely without consequences when we make decisions one way or the other. And so,
Ashley, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I would like to ask Mayor Casper a question in regards to the INL and their current mandates or requirements. With what is going on, do you think it's fair to the employees? For example, there was one that was just recently terminated for trying to make it to where the INL workers didn't have to get the vaccine by a certain date. Do you think it's fair for them to be terminated?
So, Carol, do we have time for that?
Go ahead.
Sure. I'll just say that these are decisions being made at the federal level, but I believe that the deadline for becoming vaccinated for those who are contractors out at the Idaho site is December 1st, and so the terminations may have other elements to them besides just the vaccine. This is a hard one to weigh in on because everybody's got so many different opinions and there are so many variables. But a couple things to think about. One, when people say that the government has no ability or no right to tell people, what they should and shouldn't put in their bodies, and yet we readily say if you smoke marijuana, you are, ineligible to work at the site. If you don't pass a test, a mandatory random drug test, no matter what level of government you work at, you're probably going to lose your, license or whatever it is that allows you to operate machinery and vehicles. So we already have precedent. We require that, members of the military be vaccinated with all of the old school vaccines. And so this isn't like it's a brand new issue where government is saying in order to, achieve certain public health goals or certain productivity goals, we need to have, these kinds of rules. And so I think that this issue has somehow particular emotional significance, but when you weigh out the logic, this isn't that unusual of a request. And so I do think that we have a minority of folks who are resisting this mandate from the federal government. It's certainly not a majority.
And with that, Ashley, we are going to wrap up this debate. So please take a minute and a half, and let the voters know your final thoughts.
Okay, my final thoughts are this. If you as a citizen want someone that will listen to you, that will take your concerns into consideration, that isn't afraid to jump in and get the job done, I'm your person. I am going to step up, and I'm going to be a mayor that people feel comfortable talking to, that people feel that they can work with and move forward to a greater future.
All right, Rebecca, your final thoughts?
Sure. Let me just first start by saying, Ashley, I commend you for jumping into the race, and I believe that your boldness is genuine, and your children are lucky to have you as their mom. Being a woman who's not afraid to speak out and not afraid to lead out. So I appreciate that very much. Those are important qualities, and I want to see those nurtured in everyone. And sometimes in particular, they need to be nurtured amongst women who could become wonderful leaders. I will say that, as we've discussed today, the city of Idaho Falls is not without its challenges, but I firmly believe that our challenges don't define us. When it comes to growth, all we have to do is work hard with the tools that we have, and we can shape the growth and maintain that essential character and quality that makes Idaho Falls a special place to all of us, even if there are more people enjoying that. I will say that our city, I like to say it's a city of opportunity. We continue to improve. We have more work to do with respect to parkland. We didn't get a chance to discuss that element of it in the water tower discussion. We have food insecurity and things like that that need public awareness and action. But when it comes to the city side of things, we are a city of momentum. Our Idaho Falls Airport has doubled its capacity with flights. We've grown, and exciting things are happening at the airport. We'll have another exciting announcement probably on Wednesday of this week. Fiber optics, that is a game changer for so many when it comes to being able to use telemedicine or to work from home or to go to school from home. And the city is bringing you state-of-the-art fiber optics affordably to your home. Our law enforcement center is going to change the face of Northgate Mile. And so we've got incredible momentum in this city. And at the end of the day, I can sincerely say I'm very proud of our community. I'm proud of my leadership and of the record that I have and the many efforts I've put to make and keep this a great place to live. I'm proud of the growing as I said, momentum in Idaho Falls, and I'm excited to see how we can grow and mature even more. I'm very proud of the citizenry. They step up. I'm proud of the employees who every single day have led out. Even during the pandemic, most everybody showed up to work because we didn't have that time at home. They led out every day on every issue we discussed, and many more. They all care so much about our hometown. So I'll say that I'm confident that together we can leverage all of the good things that we have and continue to be America's best small city. Thank you, Carol.
And in wrapping up, I'd just like to say I'm very proud to know that women are stepping forward like this. There was a time, and I lived through it. And to see the changes that are coming now with excellent talent coming from not the other side of the aisle, but the other side of the sexes, I guess, is very heartening for me. So that wraps up our discussion today with our mayoral candidates. If you missed it or you have a friend that you'd like to have them watch it, this will be on our website, City Club's website. So you can play it tonight, tomorrow, whenever you want, right up till the election. Also on our website, you will see last week's same discussion with the council candidates that were able to attend. And so with that, everybody that's on their lunch break, get back to work. You're running just a few minutes late. Tell your boss it's my fault. Good night.